It also streamlines the order process, right? And instead of having to re-enter information or make copies and, give me the pink copy and put the yellow copy, the canary copy in the folder and take the green copy and give that to production, it streamlines that whole process from the point of order. Those raw materials come in, the documents are there, it has the corresponding information as to where it goes, and it just moves everything through the process much quicker. It allows you to plan your demand with much better forecasting. So if you've got forecasting of orders and you have all of this stuff set up correctly, it'll allow you to really kind of plan your demand to be an optimal buy. And that's what you're looking. If you've got landed cost issues and you have to buy things that come on a boat and then get put onto a rail car and then get transferred to a truck, you want to do that as few times as possible. You don't want to be doing that every week because the cost, the landed cost, the true cost to you becomes prohibitive. So you want to make optimal buys and optimal purchases, and having tools that will let you see into the future what your forecast is, or is your forecast based on a sales forecast? Is it based on a combination of we want to build to a minimum plus customer orders, or we only want to build based upon customer orders out for 90 days? By incorporating those parameters, you can actually plan your demand right to that number. And that's a big, big benefit because it gives you the optimization of your costs of your purchases. Generating reports. If the data is in the system and it's all interconnected, think about the kind of reports I could get. I could generate a report that shows me the order number and the current status of that order on the shop floor because it's all intertwined. So it gives me the ability to create ad hoc reports, reports that tie into financial information, business intelligence reports that management can use, dashboards that you can put on management's desk so that instead of them saying to you, so how are we doing today? They just have to click an icon and they can leave you alone and let you do your job. So having that ad hoc financial reporting capability is a huge, huge benefit. And as I mentioned before, much, much easier implementation if you're an organization that's moving to just-in-time or Kanban or Kaizen or any type of lean. You kind of have a system that sets that framework for you. And then some of the other benefits are the tracking and the monitoring and the management of all of those other types of costs that we didn't talk about today, right? Landed cost tracking. I can get an item here for $5 or I can get it from China for $4. But when I get it from China for $4, it costs me $1.50 for customs per pound. It costs me the shipping charges, the custom charges, and by the time I get it landed, it's $8. So I need to track that and I need to analyze that to determine what's the best way for me to get it. Sometimes I can't get it. So I want to see what those landed costs are because I might factor that into how I price my product. Outside processing costs, another area where a lot of manufacturers tend to miss it, right? I have a piece of metal, I don't do my own anodizing or my own spraying, and I send it out to a vendor. Well, that product goes out with a raw material cost, but it comes back with a value added. And I need to bring that value added cost into the cost of my product. And a lot of times when I'm doing analysis at client sites, what they've missed when they can't figure out, we should be making money, why aren't we making money? The reason you're not making money is because you forgot to factor in the cost of what it takes to get it from China to here, and you're pricing your margin based upon the cost of it as if you bought it down the street and you didn't. Big area. Or that you forgot that you send it out to an anodizer who charges you an extra $3.50 for that item, and you forgot to incorporate that into your cost when you're doing your estimates. Tooling costs, another big area that gets missed, right? If I have a mold, if I'm doing molding, or I have tooling or anything like that, and I've got people who are in my shop who are working on that stuff, I need to factor that cost into the cost of my product. How about rework costs? I work in places where guys are doing welding. They make mistakes. So what they do, they take that piece of sheet metal that cost them $50 and they throw it away. And they never report it. Guess what? I want to see that cost because the cost of rework may be impacting what my margins are, and I don't realize it because I have one guy who keeps making mistakes, and it's really double the cost for that material. So I want to see what it costs me to rework and how often I rework. So the term costs is kind of spread out in a lot of different ways through the systems, and a good manufacturing system can track it and you can look at it. So finally, some things that you need to consider as we wrap up. When people say to me, how much is software going to cost, I say, you're looking at it wrong. Software is an investment. It's an investment that has a rate of return on it, an expected return. What's that return? Ask yourself these questions. How many inventory items I have? How long does it take me to process an order? You're looking at time and costs and things like that that you're doing manually, that if you put them in a system and set it up, will save you that time and that effort. What is the value of that time and that effort to you and to your organization? So if your clients, for the end users that are here, don't look at it as a cost. For the VARs that are here, if they use the word cost, you need to correct it like it's a profane word. Please don't use that word when you're around me. That's a dirty word. We don't talk about cost. We talk about investment. That's a key issue. Also, it allows the business to run without dependency on any one individual. I personally have been suffering at one of my clients who terminated someone at the end of the year who was responsible for all of their costing and all of their physical inventory. 2 weeks before the end of the year, they let him go, and all of his processes were manual. That process left with him in his brain, and we had to recreate it from scratch. So, you need to be able to have a system that allows you to have the comfort of knowing if somebody, I call it the Greyhound Bus Theory. If that guy walks out and gets run over by a Greyhound bus, can we still continue to do business? If your answer is no, then you need to have software in place, because that's where that information should be contained. The third one, which is kind of something that people don't realize until they go out, is that the valuation of your company goes up a lot when you have a system in place that's well disciplined and well adhered to. I've seen it before. I've had clients spend a lot of money with me right before they're about to flip their company because they didn't have a system, and they were told by the venture capitalists that it's about a 10-fold difference. I'll repeat that, a 10-fold difference, 10 times difference, which means that if I spend $100,000 on software, it could mean the difference of $1 million in the valuation of the company. So if that's not an investment with a return, if you have any intention of selling your company, it's an investment with a return. And I've been told that that number has gone from anywhere from 8x to 15x, where I've seen people that spend $1 million on software and it improves the value of that particular company almost 7 to 10 million, sometimes 12 million, because the biggest problem in that industry is that no one has a system and this company does. So that's something to really consider when you're making decisions. And mostly, it improves I like to use the word agility, to be able to quickly change direction, to spot trends and make decisions. To have that information is invaluable. If it's on paper or if it's not in a piece of software, guess what? You're never going to find that stuff. It's like finding a needle in the haystack. So, it gives you knowledge. Knowledge gives you power. And my closing point with all my clients is simply this. Guess what? If you're not doing it, your competitors are, which means they're going to outprice you, they're going to outperform you, they're going to outsell you. So to me, it's kind of if you don't have it, there better be a pretty compelling reason why not. And what I found is that there's never really a good enough excuse to not have manufacturing software in your operations. So that's my presentation for today. That was 50 minutes, and I'll open it up if anyone has any questions or comments or anything else like that.
Absolutely, Brad. That was just wonderful. Give me 1 minute, and I'm going to unmute the lines for any questions or comments from the audience. Okay, the lines are unmuted.
Brad, I'm curious that 8 to 15 times value for having a system, where'd that information come from, or how'd you get that?
I have asked that question at 3 separate clients who I was asked to make presentations to their investors groups about their systems. Even if they didn't have a system, it was to kind of make up the story of what we were doing. And each of those, I had chances to have asides with different VCs, different venture capitalists. In one case, it was Wells Fargo Bank. And I said to them, I asked the question a few times, and I said, typically, if someone doesn't have a system or has a system, how do you look at it? And separate occasions, I was pointed to the fact of usually 10 times whatever the investment was made. So if they see it's a $100,000 investment, they know that that business has about $1 million more value than a business that's in the same industry, same dollars, that does not have the system in place. So it came from experience of dealing with venture capitalists and bankers in situations where companies were being flipped or sold or restructured.